What kind of backing or not backing, as I think I know the answer already, are you getting from your university? Because they've done some kind of shady stuff with you as well, right?
Yeah, well, after I released these videos, so the first video questioned Bill C-16 and similar provincial legislation, and I said in the video that making the video was now probably illegal. So we've come to the point where even questioning the damn legislation in Canada has become an illegal act. Then I made another video about the Human Resources Department's decision to make anti-racism and anti-bias training mandatory for their staff, and a third one about the PC game. And within a week, that initiated 2 demonstrations at the university campus. And the second one was a free speech rally, which I didn't organize but spoke at. And that was the one where the journalist Lauren Southern was assaulted by a professional activist and was seconded by another who immediately lied about what she had seen. That's become infamous on YouTube. Mm-hmm. The university sent me a warning letter on October 3rd. That was a week after I made the videos, accusing me of saying that they had received many letters from the university community stating that I was making an unsafe environment, and enumerated a variety of threats that had been put forth against trans people on social media, hypothetically,
right.
without, and so they warned me and told me to stop repeating my statement that I wouldn't use these gender neutral pronouns. The reason they did that was because they reviewed the policies and concluded the same thing I concluded, which was that what I was doing was illegal. And you see, the legislation is written, and this is a real cute element of it. This is something really quite wonderful. If you're an employer in Ontario now, you are as responsible for your employees' acts of speaking as they are. And you're responsible for the consequences of their speech acts, whether they're intentional or unintentional, and whether or not a complaint has been made. So you're responsible for whatever your employees say, even if you don't know about it, even if no one complains, even if it was accidental.
Man, I mean, there's so much here. So wait, let's just pause for a second, because it warrants to mention that you are a tenured professor, which means that they can't fire you just for no reason. Is it even ever possible to fire a tenured professor? They'd have to.
Oh yeah, you can do it the way they're planning. They're planning at least to open that up as a possibility. The way you do that is the same way you discipline any employee. You send them a warning letter outlining what they're doing wrong and telling them to stop doing it. Oh, and when they wrote the first letter, they mischaracterized what I said quite badly. And I challenged them on that and told them that they should go and rewrite the letter and do it properly if they were going to come after me. But they refused my refusal, and so I kept the letter. And I got another letter on the 18th, and it was a real masterpiece of doublespeak, because they repeated their claims that they had received, many, many letters, which I'm sure they had from people within the university. But I knew at that point that they'd already also received at least 500 letters from people supporting me, because I was CC'd on the letters, as well as a petition that was signed by 10,000 people. They never even mentioned that. And they said that I had to stop. They told me I had to bring my behavior in line with university policy and stop repeating the claim that I wouldn't use gender neutral pronouns. And one of the things that was really absurd about that is, so I was accused of violating university policy, but their own policy drafted in 1992, which is their policy on freedom of speech, states outright that at the university, freedom of speech is the highest value, and that professors not only have the right, but the obligation to engage in the criticism of the university and society at large. So it was hypocritical to the nth degree. And then even we're having a debate at 9:30 in the morning on Saturday. It's going to be live cast on my YouTube channel, Jordan Peterson Videos. The university, I proposed that the university hold a debate about these issues, and they actually agreed. Although they told me, and this really put my tail in a knot because I didn't know what to do about it. They told me that they'd go ahead with the debate, but that I couldn't repeat my insistence that I wouldn't use gender neutral pronouns in the free speech debate. Right.
So wait. So let's just get this straight. They allowed you to go ahead and do this. Okay, that sounds good. But then the condition was that you actually could not repeat the very things that got this whole mess going in the first place.
Yeah. So I came home after that, and I wasn't sure what to do, because I thought, well, first of all, it took me a while just to it was like being in a Delhi painting. It's so surreal. I thought, oh, this is interesting. We're going to have a free speech debate with a restriction on free speech implicit in the debate. So I thought, well, I don't know what the hell to do about this. So I called a few theaters, and because I thought, well, to hell with it, I'll just do this by myself. But then, and I talked to my family. My parents were visiting, and I talked to my son and my wife. We talked about this a lot, and I wrote the university a letter, and I said, look, I'm not sure I can do this. This is absurd. Here's a better idea. Here's a better idea. You guys are making a mistake. You're supporting the wrong horse. You're backing the wrong horse. So why don't you do this instead? Why don't you come out in favor of my right to freedom of speech, regardless of whether you agree with me? Put your legal department behind protecting me, instead of threatening me essentially with the loss of my job, which is what they're fundamentally doing. And we'll fight this all the way to the Supreme Court. And so I went and talked to the dean who helped arrange the debate. And he said, there's no way the university will do that. And so I made another video saying all that and posted it online. I guess about 60,000 people watched that. But I decided to go ahead with the debate. And there were two reasons for that. One was, I know that it's very difficult for anything to happen without it being imperfect. And often the price you pay for moving ahead with something is to accept its imperfections, like the snake in the Garden of Eden, you know. Mm-hmm. There's always a snake in the damn garden. And so I thought this was the snake. And I thought, well, I thought it would be better to have the debate under university auspices than for me to go it alone, partly because the university should be hosting this debate, and partly because I also couldn't see, this was a secondary concern, but I also couldn't see any way out of the conundrum where I didn't lose. So if I refused the debate, then what would have happened was the university would have said, well, we offered in good faith and Peterson rejected it, and all the people that I would have hypothetically debate would have said, oh, well, he just had an excuse, and, you know, and he just took whatever excuse was open to him so that he didn't have to face us. Mm-hmm. So anyways, for better or worse, the debate's on at 9:30 in the morning on Saturday. So, and I think tickets go on sale tomorrow, but it will be live cast.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'll be sure to promote that. Absolutely. I'm curious, what kind of support or not support have you gotten from other academics? It sounds like the University of Toronto is not really on board what you're doing, but what about from academics?
Oh, none.
Nothing.
None to speak of. Now, the Society for Academic Freedom in Halifax came out and supported me. And they're a decent organization, although they don't really have any teeth. But that's not their fault. I mean, they're doing their best. But the silence from my faculty colleagues, apart from the 200 who wrote a letter denouncing me, failed and didn't have enough courage to mention that it was actually me they were denouncing, even though when they sent the letter to the Varsity, which is the University of Toronto newspaper, they said it was about me, which I thought was really funny.
Wait, so when they write a letter about you,
yeah,
how many of them do you think actually believe the content of what they're saying? Like really believe that you should be silenced, versus that the inmates are sort of running the asylum at colleges now, and that these other professors are really just protecting their own ass because they don't want the mob to come after them. Yeah, I'm not saying that's any better, by the way, of course.
I wouldn't. No. I wouldn't say that the people who denounced me did it to protect themselves, although there would have been an element of that. But certainly many of the people who are remaining silent are doing that to protect themselves. I mean, I had a colleague tell me, it was actually one of the reasons I made the video. I had a colleague say, who's you know, been on the receiving end of some political correctness. He said, well, I won't do anything about it because the cost to me would be near infinite and the social consequences would be zero. Mm-hmm. But that's always how these situations work out, and that's why people remain silent. And remaining silent is the worst thing. That you abdicate your privileges as a citizen when you remain silent. You no longer deserve to partake of the freedoms of a citizen. But people will give up their right to. They'll give up the rights at the drop of a hat. And the silence from my faculty colleagues has been absolutely deafening.
Yeah, and you know, it's very. Go ahead.
Well, it's no different than. I mean, I don't like to make this comparison, but there was no courage on the part of the intellectuals when the Soviets started to dismantle universities. There was no courage among the academics when the Nazis started to do the same thing in the 1930s. And it's the same process. I mean, I'm not trying to draw a direct equivalent, but it's the same process. It requires almost no pressure to intimidate people into silence. But that's because people aren't afraid enough people have been asking me how I can tolerate the stress. It's like, first of all, compared to real stress, a sick child, that's stressful.
Mm-hmm.
This is a political argument. What's on the line is my job. Like, that's not a tragedy. It sucks and it's stressful, but I mean, compared to genuine stress, it's nothing. But compared to the stress that I would be under if I agreed to use this language, see, for me, the real issue for me personally is that I believe that these made-up gender-neutral pronouns are part of the radical dialectic of the PC authoritarian left. I think they're carefully crafted terms. I think they have intent behind them, and they're part and parcel of an ideology. And I dread and despise that ideology to the bottom of my soul. And there's not a chance I'm going to use those words, because I would literally destroy my integrity. And I'm not doing that. I can't think of anything that would be worse for me than that. It would break me.
Yeah, and I love that passion, and it's so obvious how personal this is to you. I'm curious, what do you think is it about you that is willing to put this? I get what you're saying. It would hurt you to your core, but I just mean, like, what about your maybe formative years or something that you're the one that's putting yourself on the line for this? And I know there are a couple other, there's my friend Gad Sad, who I know you've talked to, who's in academia in Canada, who talks about this stuff. And I know I have a few allies in the United States really protecting free speech. And they're growing, by the way, which is why so many people wanted me to talk to you. But what do you think really is it about you that makes you say, I will put my ass on the line for this?
Well, I published a book in 1999 called Maps of Meaning. And the course lectures about that are on my video channel. And I wrote Maps of Meaning because I was absolutely obsessed with what had happened in Nazi Germany and in the Soviet Union. And I mean, I really, truly mean obsessed. I spent virtually every waking second for 15 years thinking about nothing else than that, and read very, very, very widely. I read all of Carl Jung. I read Orwell and Huxley and Solzhenitsyn and a slew of books on neurobiology and all the great clinical psychologists and a huge chunk of political economy. And I read a very, very vast amount of psychological and political literature. And I synthesized this over the course of 15,000 hours. That's how long it took me to write that book. And the reason I did it was because I was trying to understand the relationship between belief and emotion and motivation. And more specifically, I'll tell you a story. Here's what I was trying to understand, all right? So one of the tricks that the guards used to pull in Auschwitz was that when the prisoners or the detainees were dumped off the rail cars where they'd been packed in like sheep, worse than sheep, and where many of them died of suffocation and dehydration and overheating, when they were dumped off at the camp, and they were ruined by then already because they'd been ripped away from their families and had their lives destroyed. But that wasn't good enough for the Auschwitz guards. And one of the tricks they used to pull on them was they'd have the inmates pick up a 100-pound sack of wet salt and carry it from one side of the compound to the other, and then back. And so it said on the Auschwitz gates, "Work will make you free," which was a joke, a black joke, a joke from the depths of hell, that, like mutual assured destruction, the same kind of humor. And I was very interested in, I thought, okay, an Auschwitz guard could take someone who was already ruined, who lost their family, was suffering dreadfully, and then make them do something effortful and terrible. Because these camps were big. To carry the sack of salt from one side, that's a city. These were cities. These weren't like little prisons. Mm-hmm. And it was to demonstrate to the person their absolute abject humiliation and to deprive them of any sense of accomplishment whatsoever that they might extract from their labor. Okay, so I was interested in that, but I was interested in why a human being would do that to another human being. But I was interested in that in a very particular way, because you see, the people in Auschwitz who were the guards, they were ordinary people. And that meant that ordinary people can do that. And that meant I could do it. And so I wanted to figure out just exactly what that meant. And so I did figure out what that meant. Jung said that the human shadow stretches all the way down to hell. And that's exactly right. It's really directly true. And so I realized that when I was writing Maps of Meaning, after some experiences I had also visited is more the accurate term, but I worked for this strange psychologist in Edmonton who was the prison psychologist at the Edmonton Maximum Security Prison. And I went out there a few times and observed the convicts and started thinking about what motivated them too. And, I had a revelation not long after that about atrocity. And the revelation was, because I didn't think I was capable of doing such a thing, but I thought about it a long time and I realized I was bloody fully capable of it. And so then I started to puzzle out, given the human capacity to do that, and maybe even to revel in it, maybe even to enjoy it, what can possibly be done? And people often perform that sort of atrocity under the guise of ideological commitment. Well, I'm persecuting the Jews because I'm actually a really good guy. Here's what I want. Here's my good intentions.
Right.
Here's my good intentions, and they just happen to be collateral damage. And so it's actually moral and ethical that I'm doing this. But really, they're just taking the opportunity to act out their deep hatred of being and hatred of reality and contempt for humanity. Well, I wrote Maps of Meaning in an attempt to understand that motivation and to determine what people could do so that if the opportunity arose once again, each individual would not choose to be an Auschwitz camp guard.
So what do you think, and I would welcome everyone, we'll put the link to it.
Yeah.
But what do you think is the best way to extricate yourself from that type of thinking? What's the best way to insulate yourself so that when the day comes and you are faced with some horrific choice, that you don't jump in with the collective and, the Nazi guards, of course, the phrase that they always said was, well, I was just following orders, but orders allowed them to do, absolutely horrific things. So what can we all do to make sure that as the choices come to us, whatever they may be, that we don't do the horrible thing?
Well, a lot of people have thought through this. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, he came to a particular conclusion, and so did Dostoevsky, so did Alexander Solzhenitsyn, so did Václav Havel, who was the dissident, Czech dissident who eventually became president. They all said the same thing. Those systems exist because people lie. And the way you fight them is you don't lie. You don't lie about anything ever. And so that's what you do. And you think, well, how can that make a difference? Well, Solzhenitsyn wrote the Gulag Archipelago in the 1970s, and he detailed the transformation of the Marxist philosophical doctrine into the murderous legislation that killed perhaps 50 million people in the Soviet Union between 1919 and 1959. Said the entire society was pervaded by lies. Well, 1/3 of the people were government informers. You could never say anything that you believe to be true. And it doesn't start by people directly lying. It starts by people muffling themselves because there are certain things you can no longer say. Mm-hmm. And you demolish your character, you weaken your character through sins of omission, and you get weak. And as soon as you're weak, people can manipulate you like mad. And so the way you fight back against totalitarianism is that you tell the truth and you act out the truth, your truth, and you subject yourself to correction from other people, because the truth is a process, right? It's a process of successive approximation. And that's far more powerful than anything else you can do.
It's interesting. I'm curious, do you think the average person is actually starving for truth? Really, I don't mean like human truth of the origins of the universe, although many of us are, but I mean just simple truths about how our politicians operate, how our lives operate, our day-to-day truths, because I find all the time people will email me and say, it's so great what you're doing and free speech and all this stuff. And my response to everybody is, I don't think I'm doing anything that great other than telling the truth the way I see it. I'm trying to use logic and reason to talk to people I find interesting, to learn and expand my knowledge. And that's my quest for truth. And I think people have been so dumbed down that they're almost afraid of finding it because the system has just rewarded idiocy in a way.
Yeah, well, people, it says in the New Testament that man does not live by bread alone. And that's a technical commentary on the utility of the truth. The truth is, you could say, spiritual food. And I use that metaphor purposefully. You live on information. You're a cognitive apparatus. You live on information, and in information you transform information into the tools you use to operate within the world. And if your tools are faulty, then your life will be terrible. If you're fed on a diet of deceit, then you'll be pathological in everything you do, and the world will kick back at you extraordinarily hard. The first thing it'll do is deprive you of any sense of meaning, and then it'll make you bitter, and then it'll make you resentful, and then it'll make you murderous, and then it'll make you genocidal. That's the developmental pathway. You know, and those kids, the people who shoot up the high schools, they've already hit murderous. They're nigh on the way to genocidal. And part of the reason is that a life that's characterized by nothing but deceit has no positive meaning in it, but plenty of suffering, because you can lie to yourself and you can lie to other people, but the probability that you're going to be able to talk yourself out of your terror and pain is zero. And as far as I can tell, truth is the only genuine antidote to suffering, because getting rid of suffering, that isn't going to happen. The only thing you can do is live in a manner that enables you to withstand suffering without becoming corrupt. And that means that you live by the truth, and no matter what. And then there's a coda that goes along with that, which is something that took me decades to understand, is that Kierkegaard talked about this a fair bit when he talked about the leap of faith necessary for true religious belief. Said, telling the truth is it's a gamble on the benevolence of being. So the idea is, well, you tell the truth. You don't manipulate the world to make it give you what you want. You just say what you try to articulate yourself and articulate the manner of your being as clearly and comprehensively as possible. And then you see what happens. And you decide, this is the act of faith, you decide that no matter what happens, if you tell the truth, that that's the best possible outcome. And the thing is that at the bottom of your being, there's always a decision that has to be made about how you're going to interact in the world. Mm-hmm. Because you have free choice, whatever that means, you seem to have it. And so you have to make a decision about how it is that you're going to act in the world. And you act in truth if you can. That's the pathway out of the kind of misery that makes people bitter and far worse than bitter.
Yeah, well, it's incredibly obvious to me that you're living in your truth, and because you're doing that, you're waking up a lot of other people, which is why so many people wanted me to talk to you. So what do you think? This will be the final question. Yeah. What do you think is the best way to, if for all the people that are watching this right now, that understand this, that hear you, that understand the passion, that want to live that way too, how can they get involved in this process? Is it simply just doing? No,
I can tell you. Yeah, I can tell you. All right, so most of your viewers will have watched Pinocchio.
Probably.
There's a scene in Pinocchio where Geppetto wishes on a star, right? And what it means is he lifts up his eyes beyond the horizon to something transcendent, to something ultimate, because that's what a star is. It's part of the eternity of the night sky. And so he lifts his eyes up above his daily concerns and he says, what I want more than anything else is that my creation will become a genuine individual, right? It's a heroic gesture because it's so unlikely. And that catalyzes the puppet's transformation into a real being. And we start as puppets. And so the trick is to get rid of your goddamn strings. And you remember in Pinocchio, he faces a lot of temptations. One is to be a liar. The other is to be a neurotic victim. That's how he ends up in Pleasure Island, where he just about gets sold into the salt mines, turns into a brain jackass and sold to the salt mines because it's run by authoritarians. Well, okay, so what you do is you lift up your eyes and you say, look, I would like being to progress in the best possible manner. And that's best for me, best for my family, best for society, maybe best for the world. Simultaneously, I would like to attain that. Whatever that is, that's what I want. You commit to that. Then you tell the truth. And then you can tell if you're telling the truth. You can tell it physiologically. And so this is something to learn. You watch what you say, and you will find out that some things you say make you come apart. They make you fall apart. And you can feel it. It's physiologically. It's centered in your solar plexus. It's a feeling of chaotic weakness and dissolution. It's a sense of self-betrayal. And then if you tell the truth, that pulls you together and strengthens you. And so you can learn to feel when your words are accurately articulating yourself. And then you practice that. And that makes you into the sort of person that won't be an Auschwitz guard, that won't play ideological games, that won't sacrifice other people to their expediency. And that's what you have to do. And that's really the core idea in Western civilization, is to build yourself into a forthright individual who's capable of telling the truth and capable of bearing the responsibilities of citizenry. And that's what people have to do.
Well, Jordan, you've eloquently and passionately spoke about so many of the things that I care about and so many of the things that I've tried to live my life for. And you've also partly renewed my spirit to keep doing those things. And I think you've given a little bit of that star to a lot of the people that were wondering, where the hell is everybody on this? So you absolutely have an ally in me. And I hope next time you come to the States, we can do this in person. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. And your videos are at youtube.com/Jordan Peterson videos. And as you said, Saturday, are you live streaming on Saturday? Is that live streaming?
Live stream, yep.
Okay, well, I'll be sure to tweet that out. And thank you. It was a pleasure to talking to you. And good luck. I have a feeling our side is coming around. So
I hope so.
It's a long fight, but we're in it. Yeah, we're in it.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much.